What if the reason certain things aren't reaching your life isn't that you're doing too little, but that you've spent too long trying to control them too tightly? Think about it for a moment. Maybe you've spent months trying to get an answer that never comes, trying to make someone change, waiting for a relationship to go back to what it was, looking for a professional opportunity, wanting a situation to end, trying to know what will happen next week, next month, or a year from now. And the more uncertainty you feel, the tighter you grip. You think more, you check more, you ask more. You imagine conversations that haven't happened yet. You build scenarios in your head. You try to get ahead of every problem. You want guarantees before taking a step. You want to know everything will be fine before you let yourself breathe. But maybe no one ever explained something important to you. There's a point where trying harder stops helping you. There's a moment where chasing a solution becomes part of the problem. And there's a very thin line between doing everything that depends on you and destroying your peace by trying to control what was never fully in your hands. That's what I want to explore with you today. I'm not going to tell you to abandon your goals, nor to just sit back and wait for the universe to solve your problems. Much less that everything you lose was magically destined to disappear. The lesson here is a good deal more uncomfortable than that. It's about learning to act without obsession, to love without possessing, to wait without freezing your life, to want something without turning it into a non-negotiable condition for feeling okay, and above all, to learn to recognize when you've already done your part. Because maybe the question you need to ask isn't, what else can I do to get this? Maybe it's, how much of myself am I losing trying to force this to happen? Picture yourself for a moment standing in front of a river. The water moves forward. It curves around stones. It cuts through the forest. It descends between the mountains. You don't know its entire path. From where you stand, you can only see a few meters. But the river keeps going. Now imagine you step into the water and start pushing it with your hands. You want it to move faster. You want to decide exactly where it should go. It frustrates you that part of the current turns somewhere you didn't expect. So you fight the current. You push, you correct, you resist. After hours, you end up exhausted. But the river has barely changed. The only one who changed was you. Now you're tired, frustrated, angry at the water for not obeying you. Many people live exactly like this. They're not tired only because of what happens to them. They're worn out from the mental battle they wage against what happens to them. They don't just suffer because someone left. They suffer because they believe that person shouldn't have left. It's not only uncertainty that hurts because they don't have an answer yet. Their mind insists they should have it now. It's not only that failing hurts. They torture themselves thinking it should never have gone wrong. And here's one of the most important ideas connected to Buddhist thought. Much of our extra suffering is born from attachment, from resistance, and from our need for reality to match our expectations. Notice the difference. Feeling pain is one thing. Declaring war on the fact that the pain exists is something else entirely. You can be sad because a relationship ended. That's human. But then a second voice can show up. It shouldn't have ended. I need them to come back. Without this person, I won't be okay. This was supposed to last forever. And suddenly, you're no longer feeling only sadness. You're adding fear, resistance, anxiety, and desperation. The initial pain was maybe unavoidable. The struggle that follows doesn't have to be. That's why letting go isn't about becoming cold. It's about no longer adding chains to something that already hurts. But to do that, you need to understand why you control so much. And the answer is probably less pleasant than it seems. Behind control, there's usually fear hiding. Fear of losing. Fear of ending up alone. Fear of being wrong. Fear that someone will discover you're not enough. Fear that the future won't look like the future you imagined. Fear of looking back years from now and thinking you wasted your chance. That's why you try to foresee everything. You believe that if you analyze enough, nothing can surprise you. If you watch the relationship closely enough, you'll stop it from ending. If you work yourself to exhaustion, you'll prevent failure. If you read every sign, you'll know what the other person feels. If you think a decision through 100 times, you'll eliminate any chance of being wrong. But life never signed that contract with you. You can do everything right and still lose. You can take care of a relationship and it can still end. You can work incredibly hard on a project and watch it fail. You can treat someone well and find out that person doesn't want to stay. You can prepare for months for an opportunity that ends up going to someone else. That doesn't mean effort is useless. It means effort and outcome are two different things. You control the first one far more than the second. That small realization can change the way you live. Do everything you can honestly do. Prepare, learn, speak up, train, build, ask, apologize when you need to, walk away when you must, try again. But then understand that there comes a moment when life has to answer. And that answer can be yes, it can be no, it can be not yet. The problem shows up when your mind can only accept one of those options. That's where attachment begins. Attachment isn't simply wanting something. You can deeply want something and still remain free. Attachment appears when part of you starts saying, "I need this to happen in order to be okay." That's where you hand over your peace. Imagine you want a particular job. You prepare your resume. You study. You practice the interview. You research the company. You show up prepared. Up to that point, there's intention. There's responsibility. There's action. But then the interview ends. It's no longer entirely up to you. And yet your mind keeps working as though thinking about it could change the decision. You check your email every few minutes. You overinterpret the silence. You wonder what you said wrong. You picture the other candidates. You wake up thinking about the outcome. You go to sleep thinking about exactly the same thing. You're no longer working toward that job. You're suffering because of it. And that's very different. Something similar happens with relationships. When someone starts to pull away, many people feel an overwhelming urge to get closer. Send another message. Ask for another explanation. Look for another conversation. Try to remember whose fault it was. Promise to change. Convince. Insist. Prove yourself. But there's a brutal question we probably need to ask ourselves more often. Do you want someone to be with you because they freely choose you, or because you managed to convince them not to leave? Because those are not the same thing. They're completely different experiences. Fear of losing someone can turn love into surveillance. You start out trying to hold on to the person. You end up losing yourself. You begin accepting small behaviors that hurt you. Then you justify bigger ones. You convince yourself you need to put up with it, that you need to prove your worth, that a little more effort will fix everything, and one day you discover something uncomfortable. The thing you were so afraid of losing ended up owning you. Your decisions revolve around it. Your mood depends on it. Your self-worth depends on it. Your peace of mind depends on it. You no longer have it. It has you. That's why detachment is so often misunderstood. Some people think it means not caring about anyone, not committing, not feeling, going through life repeating that nothing matters. That's not freedom. It might just be fear wearing the costume of indifference. True detachment asks much more of you. It's being able to look at someone you love and think, I deeply want to share my life with you, but I don't need to destroy myself to stop you from ever leaving. It's being able to look at a dream and say, I'm going to work seriously to achieve this, but I won't use the outcome as proof of my worth. It's being able to go through a loss saying, this hurts, but the fact that it hurts doesn't mean my life is over. It's wanting without chaining, building without demanding guarantees, caring without owning, and there is probably no way to live completely free of loss. Everything changes. Your friendships change. Your body changes. Your priorities change. The people you love change. You yourself are not exactly the person you were 5 years ago. Some things you once wanted desperately don't interest you at all today. Some people you once thought you couldn't live without now barely cross your mind. And that should teach you something. Your mind tends to confuse what it feels intensely today with what it will need forever. But emotions don't make prophecies. Feeling like you can't get over something doesn't prove you won't get over it. Feeling like you need someone doesn't prove you truly can't live without that person. Feeling like you've lost your only chance doesn't mean other chances won't appear. The emotion describes your present state. It doesn't know your whole future. Still, when you're inside a difficult situation, your mind forgets this. Everything feels final. The rejection feels final. The failure feels final. The loneliness feels final. The uncertainty feels eternal. But think of some period in your life when you believed you'd never get out of where you were, and somehow you did. Maybe not the way you imagined. Maybe not as fast as you wanted. Maybe you even came out of it as a different person. But it passed too. And here's another fundamental teaching: impermanence. Nothing stays exactly the same, and that includes what's hurting you right now. We get scared thinking everything changes because we immediately think of the things we might lose, but we forget the other half. If everything changes, the pain changes too. Circumstances change too. The way you interpret what happened changes too. People you don't know yet show up too. Possibilities you can't even imagine right now exist too. Impermanence doesn't only mean beautiful things end. It also means terrible moments don't last forever. That's why trying to freeze life is pointless. It's like trying to hold a wave in your hands. The moment you grasp it, it stops being a wave. Maybe here lies one of the strangest paradoxes of our existence. You can only truly enjoy something once you accept you can't keep it forever. Think of a sunset. Part of its beauty is precisely that it disappears. You don't shout at the sky, "Stay like this for 5 more hours." You know it will change, and that's exactly why you watch it. But with people, we do the opposite. We want to turn certain moments into permanent contracts. We want someone to feel tomorrow exactly what they feel today. We want our life to keep one fixed shape. We want nothing to move. And when it inevitably moves, we believe something went wrong. Maybe nothing went wrong. Maybe it just changed. Not every loss hides a secret lesson. Not every closed door hides a better one. And it would be irresponsible to promise you that every tragedy happens for a reason designed specifically for you. Life doesn't always offer comfortable explanations. But even when there's no hidden meaning, you can still decide what to do with what happened. That part is much more within your reach. You can let a loss become your identity, or you can walk through it. You can use a rejection to confirm the thing you fear most about yourself, or you can ask what you can learn and keep going. You can read a change as proof that everything is ruined, or you can admit you simply don't know yet what comes next. Not knowing is hard, but not knowing doesn't mean the worst is coming. Uncertainty has 2 doors. One leads to fear, the other leads to possibility. The problem is our mind usually opens the fear door first. Imagine a seed underground. For weeks, apparently nothing happens. From the outside, you only see soil, silence, darkness, no sign of growth. If you were impatient, you might think the seed died. You might start digging every morning to check if it's growing. But every time you dig it up, you interrupt the very process you're trying to speed up. We do that with too many things. We check, we force, we compare, we doubt, we turn back. We change direction too fast, not necessarily because the path is wrong, but because it hasn't produced visible results yet. We live in an era that's trained us to expect speed. You can send a message to the other side of the planet in seconds. Buy something and get it quickly. Access thousands of videos with a tap. But your emotional system doesn't work that way. Deep relationships need time. Trust needs time. Becoming genuinely skilled at something needs time. Healing from a loss can need much more time than you'd like. Building something truly important does too. And when you try to apply the logic of instant gratification to human processes, you start believing that anything slow must be failing. Not necessarily. A large tree spends years creating something almost no one from the outside admires: roots. Everyone sees the height. Almost no one thinks about what's under the ground. The same happens with you. There are stretches where it seems like you're not moving forward because no one can yet see what you're building. You're learning discipline. You're understanding your mistakes. You're discovering your limits. You're adjusting decisions. You're learning to say no. Maybe you're learning to be alone without feeling abandoned. None of that gets immediate applause, but it can completely change the direction of the years ahead. Patience, then, isn't about standing still. It's knowing how to work without needing immediate results to keep going. There's an old image that explains this better than most theories. A gardener plants a seed, waters it, tends the soil, protects it, checks if it needs more light, does everything that's their responsibility. But there's one thing they never do. They never grab the stem and pull on it to force it to grow. Because they know that if they violently try to speed up the process, they can destroy the very thing they were trying to help. Ask yourself something. Where are you pulling on the stem in your own life? In what situation have you confused commitment with obsession? Who are you trying to convince? What answer do you need too badly? What outcome are you using as a condition before you'll let yourself rest? Because maybe you don't need to do more. Maybe you need to leave room. And I want to tell you a story. It doesn't matter much whether it happened exactly this way. What matters is what it reveals. A farmer lived in a region that had gone too long without rain. The ground was starting to dry out. The plants were losing strength. Every morning he looked at the sky hoping to find clouds, but nothing. Weeks went by. His worry turned into anguish. The anguish turned into rage. He started climbing a nearby hill to beg for rain. At first he did it for a few minutes. Then he stayed there for hours. He'd look at the sky and think, why isn't it coming? What more do I have to do? Why now, of all times? His obsession grew so much that he slowly began neglecting the things he could still control. He stopped checking certain crops. He didn't repair certain channels. He paid less attention to the animals. All his energy was fixed on something he had no direct power over, making it rain. One day a monk passed through. He saw the farmer walking toward the hill. He asked him what he was doing. The man answered, "I'm going to ask for rain." The monk looked over the field for a few seconds. Then he asked, "And while you're asking for rain, who's taking care of the soil?" The farmer didn't answer, because suddenly he understood something. His problem wasn't only that it wasn't raining. He had also abandoned the things he could actually do, because he was hypnotized by the thing he couldn't control. That farmer shows up inside all of us, over and over. You wait for an opportunity and stop preparing. You wait for a relationship and stop building a life you enjoy. You wait to feel motivated and stop acting. You wait for someone to apologize and keep your emotional life on hold until it happens. You wait for circumstances to change and don't use anything you already have. You're staring at the sky, but your ground needs water. Maybe the answer will be slow. Maybe a certain person will never come back. Maybe that opportunity will disappear. Maybe something completely different from what you imagined will happen. You don't know. That's exactly why you need to come back to your own ground. Ask yourself, while this is being sorted out, what can I still take care of? Your body, your work, your family, your friends, your skills, your rest, your home, your character, your attention, the way you talk to yourself, your next decision. That's what letting go actually looks like. It's not abandoning responsibility. It's placing responsibility where it belongs. Do your part, and let what doesn't depend on you stay out of your hands. It can sound simple, but it isn't. Because when you stop chasing something, an uncomfortable silence shows up. You're no longer sending messages. You're no longer looking for signs. You're no longer trying to manipulate every possibility. And then you're left alone with yourself. That's where you discover how much fear you were avoiding through constant action. Sometimes we chase not because there's something useful to do, but because doing anything at all lets us feel, for a moment, like we're in control. That's why compulsively checking something calms you down for a few seconds. That's why writing to someone again can momentarily ease anxiety. That's why replaying the same conversation 20 times can feel productive. You're not always looking for a solution. Sometimes you're just trying to numb the uncertainty. And learning to let go means being able to feel that uncertainty without reacting to it immediately. This is where mindfulness can become an extraordinary tool. Imagine anxiety shows up. Normally we do this. I feel anxious, so something must be wrong. Then, if something's wrong, I have to fix it. Then, what can I do right now? And then we start acting from fear. The practice is about inserting a gap between the emotion and the action. Feel. There's anxiety here. Nothing else. Not, I'm doomed. Not, this means I'm going to lose it. Not, I need to act immediately. Just, my body is feeling anxious. Notice how the experience changes. An emotion stops automatically turning into an order. You can feel fear without obeying it. You can feel the urge to text without texting. You can feel the need to check something without checking it. You can have catastrophic thoughts without treating them as predictions. That's a real form of freedom. Not controlling what shows up in your mind, but deciding what you do next. Because your thoughts aren't always trying to tell you the truth. A lot of the time, they're just trying to protect you. And a frightened mind would rather have an imagined danger it can prepare for than an uncertainty it can't control. That's why it builds stories. They definitely don't care about me anymore. I'm probably going to get rejected. This is never going to work. I'm too late. Everyone else is moving forward and I'm stuck. But notice something important. Most of those sentences are about the future. Anxiety loves living there. It rarely settles for this minute. It needs to drag you into tomorrow, into next week, into 10 years from now. And here we find another trap. We spend a huge portion of our existence mentally preparing for lives that may never happen. We suffer through imagined conversations, hypothetical rejections, failures that don't exist yet, losses that haven't arrived. And while we rehearse all these futures, the present slips by quietly in front of us. When will you be happy? When you get that job? When you find a partner? When you have money? When you finish your studies? When you change physically? When you move? When you have more time? When a certain problem disappears? But careful, because after that, something new will show up. Another goal, another worry, another gap to fill. If you don't learn to be alive while you're building your future, you can turn your entire existence into a waiting room. Always about to start living, never actually living. There's nothing wrong with having ambition. The problem shows up when you turn the present into a mere obstacle between you and the next goal. Think about how many ordinary days you've dismissed. Days when nothing extraordinary happened. Days you'll probably miss someday. A meal with someone. A silly conversation. The sound of rain. Walking around your neighborhood. The chance to call someone who's still here right now. An afternoon when your body worked without pain. A coffee. A song. An hour without bad news. The future-focused mind considers all of that too small. But a life is made mostly of those small things. The extraordinary moments are the exceptions. Real existence happens in between them. That's why a good question to ask when you wake up isn't always, when will my life change? It can be, what part of my life is already happening that I'm not seeing? That doesn't mean settling. You can want more and appreciate what you have. You can feel gratitude and still try to improve. You can accept the present without declaring you want to stay there forever. Accepting doesn't mean approving. Here's another important confusion. Suppose you're in an unjust situation. Accepting means recognizing, this is happening. It doesn't mean, this is fine. You can accept that a relationship is harmful, and precisely because of that, end it. You can accept that your financial situation is bad, and start changing it. You can accept that you made a mistake, and repair it. Acceptance puts you in contact with reality. Resignation pulls you away from action. They're different things. When you deny reality, you waste energy fighting facts that already exist. When you acknowledge it, you can decide. This is what's here now. What's my next move? That's where you get your power back. Not because you control the world, but because you stop demanding the world be different before you're willing to act. Now I want you to think of something you're afraid of losing. You don't need to tell anyone. Just think. A person, a position, money, an opportunity, an image of yourself, a dream. Now ask yourself, what behavior is this fear causing in me? Maybe it's making you accept too much. Maybe you're trying to control another person. Maybe it's stopping you from making a necessary decision. Maybe it's forcing you to work without resting. Maybe it makes you constantly compare your life to others. Or maybe it's keeping you attached to something that ended a long time ago. Then ask yourself a harder question. Who would I be if I stopped organizing my life around the fear of losing this? That doesn't mean you have to give it up. It means you need to get back your ability to choose. Because you're not free when you can only act one way out of fear that something will disappear. A healthy relationship needs two people who are able to stay freely, not two prisoners trying to avoid a breakup. Healthy ambition needs discipline, not self-destruction. A dream should give you direction, not become a judge that decides how much you're worth. And maybe one of the most useful sentences you can learn is this one. I want it, but I don't need it to happen exactly as I picture it in order to keep being myself. Say it again with whatever is taking up too much space in your head right now. I want it. I'm going to work for it. I'll protect it if it deserves protecting. I'll do what's honestly in my hands. But I won't hand over all my peace for it, because you also have to make room for an unsettling possibility. You might be wrong about what you think you need. We all have been. You've wanted people you later realized weren't good for you. You've wanted opportunities that, looking back years later, might not have led anywhere. You've idealized versions of your future that no longer match who you are. That doesn't mean every rejection is a blessing in disguise. Sometimes a rejection simply hurts, but it also doesn't mean you can accurately judge everything that's happening while you're still inside the story. You never know for certain what meaning an event will carry 5 years from now. That's why it might help to replace one dangerous sentence, "This was meant to happen," with a more honest one, "This happened. I don't know yet what I'll do with it." That sentence leaves room to learn, to recover, to change, to discover that maybe a closed door forced you to look in directions you never would have considered. Or maybe not. But you don't need to invent a mystical explanation to keep going. You just need to stop treating a single event as a final verdict on your life. Even failure can become information. Sometimes life isn't telling you, this path isn't for you. Maybe it's simply telling you, not like this. And there's a huge difference. Failing at one attempt doesn't prove you should abandon the whole goal. Maybe you need a different strategy, more preparation, more time, someone else, another place, or maybe you really do need to let it go. But you won't know that if you treat every obstacle as an absolute sign. Wisdom lies in telling persistence apart from stubbornness, and that distinction requires observing, not just wanting. Ask yourself, am I holding on because there are still good reasons to? Or, am I holding on because admitting this is over would hurt my ego? Sometimes we don't actually want the relationship. We want to win. We don't really want that job. We want to prove we were capable of getting it. We don't want that person back. We want to stop feeling rejected. We don't want to resolve a certain conflict. We want to be right. Ego can disguise itself as perseverance, and that's why letting go hurts so much. Because sometimes what you're letting go of isn't a person. It's the story you had built. The imagined wedding, the career you thought you'd have, the recognition you expected, the version of yourself you thought you should already be by now. Losing an expectation can hurt almost as much as losing something real. But even then, your life is still bigger than the plan that failed. You're not only what you achieve, you're not exclusively the person someone chooses to love. You're not the outcome of an interview, or your follower count, or your bank account, or the number on a scale, or the opinion of someone who may not even know themselves very well. When you build your entire identity around something external, every change becomes an existential threat. That's why inner work isn't just about getting better circumstances. It's also about becoming someone who can move through changing circumstances without completely losing themselves inside them. You're not going to reach a point where nothing hurts you. That shouldn't be the goal. Life is going to touch sensitive places. You're going to say goodbye. You're going to make mistakes. There will be moments when you wish you could turn back time. Freedom isn't about eliminating those experiences. It's learning that you can feel deeply without being destroyed forever. An emotion can move through you without becoming your home. A thought can appear without becoming a belief. A loss can become part of your story without becoming your entire identity. And once you understand this, you stop needing so many guarantees. You start saying, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I trust my ability to respond to it. Notice the shift. You no longer need to believe everything will turn out fine. That would be impossible. You trust something more realistic, that you'll be able to face whatever comes. You don't know if that relationship will last forever, but you can commit honestly while it exists. You don't know if your project will succeed, but you can work at it intelligently. You don't know when the right opportunity will show up, but you can prepare. You don't know how long a hard season will take to end, but you can get through today. That's trust. Not the belief that some invisible script guarantees every wish gets granted, but knowing that uncertainty doesn't have to stop you from living. There's a huge difference between thinking, everything will turn out exactly how I want, and thinking, whatever happens, I'll respond in the best way I can. The first sentence tries to control the future. The second strengthens the person who's going to arrive at that future. And maybe that's exactly what you need. Stop constantly asking when. When will it arrive? When will it change? When will I know the answer? When will I be ready? When will it stop hurting? When will I meet someone? When will I succeed? When can become a prison. Because while you're obsessively watching the calendar, you forget something. Your life is happening in the meantime. And the meantime isn't some unimportant hallway. It's the place where you're actually living. Suppose what you want takes 2 years. Are you going to sacrifice those 2 years thinking only about the day it finally arrives? What if it takes 5? Are you going to let 5 years of life count as nothing more than preparation? Number. Build while you wait. Love while you wait. Make friends while you wait. Learn while you wait. Take care of your body. Read. Travel when you can. Rest. Make mistakes. Laugh. Try new things. Because maybe when you finally get what you wanted so badly, you'll discover something strange. What actually transformed you wasn't getting it. It was the person you became while walking toward it. Then you no longer need to push the river. You can walk alongside it. You can watch where it turns. You can step in when you actually have real power to. And you can accept that there are stretches of the journey you won't understand until much later. That doesn't mean living without direction. A river has direction, but it also knows how to go around obstacles. That's flexibility. Many people have goals but lack flexibility. They say, I want to get there. Great. The problem starts when they add, and it has to be exactly this path, with this person, before this age, in this way, and with no delays whatsoever. Then the goal stops being a direction. It becomes a prison. Have goals, but let the path breathe. Maybe what you want will arrive in a different way, or maybe you'll discover you want something different. Don't turn a decision made by an older version of you into an obligation for the person you are today. And remember the image of the farmer. You can ask for rain. You can wish for it. You can look at the sky. But then go back to your field. Water what you can water. Make the call that actually depends on you. Turn in the work. Go to the gym. Say sorry. Look for another opportunity. Rest tonight. Turn off your phone. Stop checking for the 20th time something that hasn't changed in the last 5 minutes. Come back to your life. Maybe what you're waiting for will arrive. Maybe it won't. But when an answer finally comes, make sure it finds someone who didn't abandon their own life while waiting. That's what letting go actually is. Not saying, I don't care. But being able to say, I care a lot, but I matter to me too. Not saying, I don't want anything anymore, but I can want something without kneeling in front of my desire. Not saying, everything happens for a reason, but I don't need to understand everything that's happening right now in order to keep moving forward. Not saying, the universe will give me exactly what I want. But I'll do my part and accept that the outcome contains variables I don't control. That might not be the prettiest promise, but it's a lot more powerful, because it doesn't depend on magic. It depends on a skill you can train, and maybe you can start right now. Think again about the thing you've been trying to force. That person, that outcome, that answer, that stage of life, that recognition. Now imagine that for a moment you open your hands. You're not abandoning it, you're just no longer squeezing it. Breathe. Ask yourself, what actually depends on me? Be brutally honest. Maybe it depends on you to have a conversation. Have it. Maybe it depends on you to study. Study. Maybe you need to walk away. Walk away. Maybe you need to wait for an answer. Then wait. But don't confuse waiting with freezing your life. Then ask yourself, what am I trying to control that doesn't depend on me? Someone's opinion. The exact timing. Another person's decision. The past. The pace of your own recovery. What someone else feels. What others do when you're not around. The possibility that something might go wrong. Now imagine putting all of that outside your hands. Not because you don't care, because it was never truly in them to begin with. That's probably one of the deepest forms of peace there is. Not getting life to obey you, but no longer needing it to obey you in order to remain whole. Maybe tomorrow you still won't have the answer. Maybe that person will still be distant. Maybe your goal will still feel far away. But you can wake up differently. Without mentally chasing the future from the first minute of the morning, you can ask yourself, what can I build today? And do it, step by step. Without pulling up the seed, without pushing the river, without turning every silence into a tragedy, without reading every delay as a sentence, without abandoning your own ground because the sky hasn't answered yet. You don't need to know everything. You need to know your next step, just that. The next one. Then another will come. And maybe one day you'll look back and understand something you can't see today. Maybe the thing you tried so hard to control was never really the problem. Maybe the problem was believing you needed to control it in order to feel safe. And when you finally stop fighting everything uncertain, something unexpected happens. The uncertainty doesn't disappear. Part of your fear of it does. You start to trust. Not necessarily that life will give you exactly what you want, but that your peace doesn't have to depend entirely on that. And that's where everything changes. You can love better because you no longer need to possess. You can work better because fear of failure no longer runs every move you make. You can wait without feeling like you're wasting your existence. You can lose something without concluding you've lost yourself. You can receive good news without grabbing onto it, terrified of how long it will last. And you can look at the future without demanding guarantees no human being has ever had. Maybe that's what real letting go is. Not taking your hands off your life, but taking your hands off the things you were never able to manage in the first place. Do your part. Tend your field. Let the seed grow. Adapt when the path changes. Accept when a door has truly closed. Have the courage to reach out one more time when there's still something to do. And have that same courage to stay quiet when you've already done enough. Because sometimes moving forward means pushing on, and other times moving forward means stopping. Wisdom is learning the difference. So tonight, when your mind asks you again when the thing you're waiting for will finally happen, try something different. Answer it, I don't know. And stay there. Without inventing a date. Without imagining the worst-case scenario. Without promising yourself miracles. Just, I don't know. Then add, but I know what I can do today. And do it. That's enough. Maybe you don't need everything resolved this week. Maybe you just need to stop trying to live your whole life all at once. Breathe. Look at what's in front of you. Do what's yours to do. And then open your hands. Because a closed fist can hold on to something. But it can't receive anything new either. And a life built only around the fear of losing things ends up being too small. Let it change. Let some things end. Let others begin, without knowing yet what they'll mean. Let yourself want deeply without turning that desire into a chain. Let yourself move forward without having the whole map. Life was never fully under your control, and maybe that's not a tragedy. Maybe discovering that is the beginning of a freedom you've been looking for years. Don't stop acting. Don't abandon your dreams. Don't turn these words into an excuse to stay still. Do exactly the opposite. Do better at the things that actually depend on you, and stop spending your energy trying to govern the things that belong to uncertainty. Water your ground. Tend your roots. Walk. Love. Build. Learn. Rest when you need to. And when fear shows up, remember, not every thought needs a response. Not every emotion demands an action. Not every loss needs an explanation. Not every delay means failure. Not every closed door decides the rest of your path. And not everything you want needs to become a condition for your happiness. You can look at what you want and say, I hope it comes. And, at the same time, until then, I'm going to live. Maybe those are some of the most important words you can say to yourself. I'm going to live while I wait. I'm going to live even without all the answers. I'm going to live even when something changes. I'm going to live without forcing anyone to stay. I'm going to live without turning my goals into my identity. I'm going to live knowing some things depend on me and others don't. And I'm going to stop punishing myself for not being able to control the ones that don't. So breathe once more. Think about the thing you've been gripping too tightly for too long. And ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped chasing it, just for a moment? Maybe you wouldn't lose anything. Maybe you'd actually get something back. Your time, your energy, your dignity, your present, your peace. And maybe you'll discover that letting go never meant losing control. It meant recognizing that total control never existed in the first place. Do your part. Then let the river keep going, because your job was never to push the whole current. Your job was to learn to walk alongside it without losing yourself along the way. If you made it to the end, comment, I'm here, and I'll respond to you personally. And if this resonated with you, subscribe to be part of it, and give it a like if you enjoyed it.